All right. So, so you said you're an atheist. How did you get to that belief, or have you always felt that way? Or
No, growing up, we occasionally would go to church, very non-denominational.
like you're when you say non-denominational, do you mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Willow Creek, or like the seeker-sensitive churches, or
are you talking like evangelical
Yeah.
new style?
yeah, like non-liturgical is the best way I can put
Okay,
it. As
right.
far as like doesn't have like a set. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, I would occasionally go to church with friends, and there was a variety of denominations that we'd go to, etc.
Okay.
I was in Boy Scouts, and we went to a church for our meetings, etc. So I was certainly involved.
Had some exposure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Occasionally grandparents take you out. They were much more religious than my parents.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
And I quasi believed in that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then I got in. I became very scientific. I was really into science and exploring knowledge, etc. I had questions about faith. At one point, I was dating someone who was Mormon, and I was really had a huge crush on her. And she wanted me to go to a service. I went to service, and I desperately prayed. It's like I'm really doubtful. I gotta have a sign, because I don't see any other evidence of.
Would this be high school or college?
High school, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so nothing happened. So
Now, I'm not familiar with their services. Are they real emotional or more intellectual about their approach to faith, or?
I would say it was very average. There was singing
Comparative to other.
Yeah, it wasn't vigorous dancing or praising.
Yeah.
It wasn't also a long lecture. They save those for Sunday school. That's
Okay.
when you're in Sunday school in Mormon faith, there's a lot of talking about Scripture.
Okay.
So.
So you really wanted to believe more for the girl, or?
Well, it was kind of like she really clicked with me.
She caught your attention.
And her eye and this schism was
Yeah.
a faith schism, and I said, well, I'm willing to, if you tell me, then I'll do it. You know? And it just never happened. So that was that. I kind of got into the. I like the idea of sort of the laws of nature and the universe being some sort of mythical thing. And that's the level of religion I have. Like, I appreciate the world, the universe and the world as it exists. It's amazing to have so much complexity in
That's where you're at now?
Yeah. So I sort of, I have that, I remember also in high school, some people claim that if you don't have religion, you don't have any humanism or moralism. And I really disbelieve that. I feel I got involved with some secular humanists who believe that man is good, and and I like those ideas where it was like, you can be a good and just person without religion. So I appreciated that. That's where I kind of work at from there. So.
Yeah.
And I don't have problems with anyone's beliefs.
Right.
I have an atheist friend who's just can't get over the fact that people have beliefs or faiths, and he wants them to. He's constantly asking them, "Tell me, why do you believe this?" And I'm just like, look.
It's like an evangelical atheist.
Exactly. Right. Right.
Spreading the gospel of atheism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I just feel let people be. People change their mind. I had a friend who was an atheist in high school, and now she's a very big. What's it's an Anglican? Mm-hmm. It's not the Church of England. It's the
Episcopal.
Episcopal.
Yeah.
So things happen. Things change. So.
Yeah. Now, do you you said you were scientific
Yeah.
about it. So do you think, say God did exist, do you think we should be able to conduct experiments to determine his existence? In other words, do you think God would be within the realm of science or outside of it somehow? You know?
If a all-powerful God can create a system that operates without any adjustments or anything, there would be no way to tell
Right.
with an experiment. That's just it.
Yeah.
So
So I kind of think the definition of God is, I mean, part of it probably would be supernatural, like, and so you would be like a naturalist, right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm always amused at people who have, the supernatural beliefs we laugh at, ghosts and weird creatures and such. But
Yeah.
why do some people believe in God that way? So I went to a talk by a author, Jared Diamond. He wrote Guns,
Yeah.
Germs and Steel. Yeah.
Yep.
So he gave
I'm
this-
actually a high school history teacher, so we've
okay.
gone through his
yeah.
video series.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So
Guns,
his-
Germs, and Steel.
yeah, his talk at that lecture was why did man develop organized religion? It didn't matter. There really weren't any cultures that didn't have a religion. There were attempts, secular attempts at communism, but that didn't really work. But,
Yeah.
even in isolated places, everyone had a religion.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why did all of mankind develop religions of various sorts? His argument was that, especially since they cost you energy and money and
Yeah.
goods and things, you're constantly, you go one seventh of your day of your week is church, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
How can you, that's like if you had a competitor that was, 17 times better than you, that person would automatically win the world, if you will.
Yeah. Interesting.
So he argued that organized religion gave people some advantage in continuing, whether it be not killing everybody, not killing people in your tribe, or maybe helping organize human levels that are larger than a tribe. The tribe is your family plus so a few hundred associated people. How can you then not kill the guy on the other side of the valley?
Yeah.
Well, you can say, well, if we have the same religion, maybe we can. There's
Yeah.
sort of communistic. So that was his argument.
And
That's why we.
That's actually like how the Romans, like when they took over, say, Palestine or just different areas.
They just let the
They
religions.
they would require that, and that's kind of how Christianity got involved in the Roman Empire. Is they would require that the people they take over include some of their religion, and they would be willing to take on the conquered people's religion, so that there's some shared beliefs, so that they can't say, because they had real territorial, deities, and so they can't say, well, our God is going to defend us against our, in our fight against the Romans. It's like, no, now what their goal was that they would both have the same or share many of the same gods, or deities, and so that makes sense,
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So you would look at religion as like an evolutionary, a product of social
Social
evolution.
evolutionary, yeah, I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a socially unpopular thing to say.
Yeah. Well, it's becoming. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people, and it's becoming more and more popular, to the point where Christianity, to say you're a Christian, will become and in many circles, it's you'd be a brave person to admit you're a Christian.
Yeah.
In a lot of,
In some
I guess you'd say,
places.
subcultures,
Yeah.
of American society.
Yeah.
So, which is, as I study history, the history of Christianity, it was when it became the status quo, that it lost a lot of actually, I'm not going to say it lost. It gained a lot of people who were not necessarily Christian, if that makes sense. So the whole idea of Christendom.
Oh, like when
when
some king converted and then he forced all his people to.
So like when Christianity came out of the underground and you no longer had to suffer for your faith, or like to be willing to give your life to, Jesus said, if you follow me, you will be persecuted, right? Well, now it's like if you say you're a Christian, or when it became part of the popular culture, then it was like now we're saying basically you can be cool to be if you're a Christian. You can be in the in crowd, in that setting. And I was mentioning that some of the seeker-friendly churches, and I think one of the approaches that they're taking, which I think is mistaken, is to say it's cool to be a Christian. In other words, we've got rock music, and we've got like we're entertaining people the same way the world is. It's like no longer was it. I'm going to turn this. No longer was it a sacrifice to be a Christian. So let me ask you this, though: as an atheist, what kind of evidence would you like? Let's say you're scientifically oriented, evidence-based, right? Is there any evidence that you would accept to say, okay, now I do believe in God? You know what I mean?
Right. Some sort of communication that I could definitely know is not, a product of hallucination, or maybe I would really be very. The best way of doing this would be if in the quantum mechanics world, where we have this situation where we can put things into an unknown box and manipulate another box, and we derive the results of this first box. If that somehow could be shown as proof of God, that would be wonderful for me. But at the moment, it doesn't.
It's like a controlled experiment where we have. Basically, it's like treating God as if he's like an energy source, or like electricity, or something that can be predicted, and so.
Well, and that's where if this sort of thing showed up in there, where it's like it looks like someone's playing with us. That would be something of a nice, and then it was further worked out. So.
Unfortunately, Christianity has within it, I'm sure you're aware of, like when Jesus was being tempted in the wilderness, and he was basically, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test, like Christianity actually, it does say, there's a place in the Bible that says without faith it's impossible to please God. So it's like so with those two things, you shouldn't test God, and without faith you can't please him. It's basically saying you in the end you will always have to have faith, which for a long time I tried. I wanted to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that God exists. It's like I believed in him, but how can I prove it? And I'll be the first to say I can't prove it. I do think, because I've looked into the evidence for the Bible's divine origins, and the miracles, different things that happen. I believe that I can be a rational human being and have a reasonable faith, so it's faith, but it's not something I can prove to anyone else. And so all I can do is point people in the direction of here's evidence,
right?
And there's a body of evidence for God, and if you read some of the current atheist books, of course they'll say there's evidence against God. It's like, let's weigh the evidence.
And then if you get down to it, realize you have to have faith of that. That's it.
And I do find that when two people who are very committed to both sides, one side or the other side, when they talk, it's like I would quote my favorite authors and you quote your favorite authors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, then, it's kind of a... Let me ask you this, though. If you were to die unexpectedly and wake up and find that you are standing before God, and it's Judgment Day,
Yeah.
And there's heaven and hell at stake, like the Bible says,
Yeah.
Where do you think you would, or how do you think you would do? Like what?
Like if I came to that moment, I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
I would sit there and go, what do I know what I was supposed to do? What did I do?
Yeah.
So,
One of the things about, what was his name? Jared Diamond? Saying that everyone has religion. The Bible actually teaches there's a reason for that. And that is because everyone's been given a conscience. Ever since Adam and Eve, when they sinned, and then it says their eyes were open and they knew good from evil. And then there's other references, throughout the Bible that talks about God putting his law in our hearts. So in other words, we all have a conscience. And so whether you're from a Christian religion or any kind of religion, that would mean all people in the world have a sense of right and wrong. And the one thing in common that we have with that is that we don't keep it. Like we know the good behavior we ought to do and we fail to do it, or we we know the things we shouldn't do and yet we find ourselves doing it all too often. And so religion then would be the trying to solve the problem of our own immorality and knowing that we're somehow accountable. And even atheism would say, I can, I'm not going to say God exists, but good exists. And I'm one of the good guys.
Right.
Because I don't need the threat of hell or the reward of heaven to be a good person. I'm just good for goodness sake. And isn't that one of atheism's slogans? I think I've seen that on a billboard. Good for goodness sake. And it's like, okay, why do we feel we have to show that we're good? Just the very fact that when we do something wrong, we have to we feel compelled to come up with excuses why we did it.
Well, I mean, you have to be aware, some animals also have these senses as well, and so you have to ask why does religion separate man from animal? But if you do,
is that just like a scientific?
Yeah, neuroscience. You can tell.
I know my dog seems like she's embarrassed or ashamed when she does something wrong, but then again, that's because she gets punished.
They're very strongly trained. But I mean, there's primate studies and things where it's literally it's like, oh, that's exactly human behavior, and we see it in these animals, and they're showing exactly what we're feeling. Do an MRI in the brain, fMRI, and see the same part of the brain light up as we do when we experience what we call shame. It's like I feel like that to me is challenging when you talk about at least the Bible. So.
Yeah, it's like saying because animals. Well, I mean, I'm just saying. I'm thinking because primates, share a lot of our DNA. Does that mean that we're basically animals? If they have some shame, does that mean our shame is meaningless? I'm not.
Well, I don't think it works like
that.
I know that's trying to get away from how much more man has developed.
Yeah.
Here, this is not, So.
Yeah.
So I think that's the last question and answer. My stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've gotten chills.
Thaw out. I appreciate the conversation.
I do need to get some. All right. Well, Jeff.
You said your name's Dean?
I'm Dean.
Dean. Okay.
Nice
Very
to
good to meet you.